our speaker. Cody's coming to us from Washington, the beautiful state of Washington. He's at the end of his driveway because he's got 4 kids. So he's made it to the end of his driveway so that he can really share with us without being interrupted, and we appreciate that, Cody. So looking forward to hearing your story tonight. Please come on in here. Thank you for sharing.
Recording in progress.
Right on. Thank you, Jeannie. And thanks, guys, for having me. Well, my name's Cody Diane. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I got sober February 7th, 2008. My home group is Bonnie Lake Stag up here in the beautiful Buckley, Washington state area. And I'm sure you guys hear this all the time, but it is the best home group in the world. Seriously, though, those guys are pretty amazing. The spiritual connection in that meeting, the fellowship of the spirit aspect of just what we're doing here is strong in that meeting. It's definitely taught me a lot about principles before personalities. And you get guys in the room and there's a lot of experience, strength, and hope, but also there's a lot of egos and a lot of letting God iron out some of that pride and ego in us, and it's super cool to be a part of that home group and just the heart for God and recovery that those men have is, I owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was thinking about spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And I don't know about you guys, but my whole life, I've kind of been this perfectionist. I want things done a certain way. I always want to control the situation. I'm at the end of my driveway, for crying out loud. I need to make sure that my kids are, not interrupting me. And, maybe that's not the greatest example, but a lot of days, most days, I wake up and I think about the most important thing in the world, and that's me. And it sucks because that's my initial thought. It's like, what does Cody have to get done? What do I have to do? How can I run the show? What do I have to do? And I go through this checklist, right? And that's kind of the way that I wake up. So I've come into this place now almost 17 years into this thing, and where the steps aren't so in a box for me. I used to, when I first came in here, I came to my sponsor. It's like, what do I have to do step 1? What do I have to do step 2? I want to check this list off. And there's value in running through the steps quickly and precisely. And we definitely do that. I'm now, in hindsight, through my experience, am starting to realize that it's no think, just do, right? It's like, I don't need to figure out how exactly to do it perfectly in order to get it done, and I used to sit on step assignments more than I do now, still guilty I'm still not perfect, but I used to do the analysis by paralysis thing, and I wanted to just do it perfect. But I'm coming to realize, though, these 12 steps are an experience, and they can also, they're a daily experience and a way of life, and so my story is, and I could talk probably for an hour on that, but I'll share a little bit about how I got here. So I got sober at 21 years old. It was my 3rd treatment center, but I grew up in an alcoholic home. I had a mom and a stepfather who, it was a rough environment to grow up in. It was them going back and forth and cocktail glasses being thrown. And, my stepdad moved into my house after my dad divorced my mom at 10 years old. And so from 10 years old on, I have this new man living in our house, and alcohol was the primary relationship. It was like the linchpin that held my mom and my stepfather together, right? It was the thing that they did. They went to the bar, and there was a bar down the street from where we lived, and they would walk there, probably half of the nights during the week. They would just walk down there, come back home. Me and my sister are at home, and my mom she was a good mom, right? And I don't want to make this seem like she didn't love us or that she wasn't there for us, because she was. It just, the normal growing up was alcohol was present, and that was the life that she knew, right? And that was my stepdad, definitely, that was who he was. So we're growing up in this environment, and I get to preteen years, and I'm experimenting with weed and alcohol, and I taste alcohol, and it's like I'm doing this. Like, at first, it's like I'm in the crowd. I'm drinking. This is cool, and I become a freshman in high school, and it was like, and at this time when I really drank my first drink, it was a kegger, and I felt like I was at home. And before that had been, around my mom's house, it was like a sip or something. I don't even remember. But the first time that I drank alcoholically, it was when I was in a party setting. And I remember what happened to me was, when I took that drink, for the first time, the drink took me. And I don't remember exactly what happened that night. It was blackout drunk. And so from that moment on, I started drinking, 14 years old, alcoholic. It became almost a daily thing, and I could get into the DUIs and the arrests and all of that, and spend time on that. But you guys know how that is, and all the treatment centers, and switching the types of alcohol. But I used to think that I was an alcoholic because of all those things that happened to me when I was drinking, right? And even when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's taken me some years to really understand, okay, and even though the book tells us clearly, right, that physical craving is the thing that separates us from everybody else, right? But in my mind, I want to think that it's the situations. It's the way that I grew up. It's all these things, right? But it's the physical element that cements this idea that I'm an alcoholic. And so looking back in my experience of drinking, that was the thing that made me an alcoholic. Whether it was an important court date, whether it was an important event that I wanted to attend with all my heart, I chose the drink every time. And I disappeared and did whatever the hell Cody wanted to do. Because even after I took that first drink, I remember thinking to myself, I really want to go and take care of what I got to take care of. But the feeling that I had that the alcohol gave me, right, physically, overrode any common sense to get anything done that needed to get done in my life, right? And so understanding that, and then coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, and now in retrospect looking at that, that's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with this physical craving when the alcohol's in me. Now, I get to Alcoholics Anonymous at 21 years old, and I start to learn this thing about the mental state that precedes the first drink, right? This physical, mental, spiritual thing. And so I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I get a sponsor, and I start working the steps, and I get a men's home group at 21, and I'm seeing guys like, I want to be sober. I'm after my third DUI, third treatment center, and really, really shitty things are happening in my life. And the pain of all of it, the pain of any relationships I had at that time, I'm floating around house to house. I'm not staying at home. I haven't talked to my parents and, my real biological dad or my mother for, I think it was almost a year at that time. And I'm drinking. I'm drinking among other things, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm drinking hard though. I'm doing other things and I'm drinking malt liquor and I'm in a bad way. And so I go to my last detox and Tacoma detox and treatment center, and I get out and I show up in an AA meeting. And I wanted more than anything to have what you guys had. You guys were super happy. And by God's grace, I love the name of this group, Grace, the Grace group. Grace is the best thing ever. I mean, it's got to be my favorite word, especially today just the way that God is in my life. But I show up to AA and I'm like, I need to do whatever the hell you guys are doing. Because you guys, you're doing something. And all I knew was that my thinking and what I was doing wasn't working. So I get into AA, I get a sponsor, and I start going through the steps. And there's a heavy emphasis on, show up to the meeting, do the meeting, right? Do the meeting stuff, meetings. And I fall into this culture, and I know you guys hear it all the time, right? Especially on this Mad Dog stuff, right? It's the meetings. And I didn't realize what I was getting into, right? I love AA for how AA was when AA showed up in my life when AA did. And so I come into this culture, I'm hooked into this group of men that were doing activities. We're doing fellowship stuff, a step here and there, there's not a heavy emphasis on working the steps too much, right? And so I get hooked into this culture of the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous for almost 10 years. And I'm sober, I get hooked into softball, and I'm living life. I meet my wife, my now wife, and I'm not praying. I'm not doing anything spiritually. I'm not sponsoring anybody at this time. And it's about 8 years go by, and I maybe had sponsored a few guys in that time, and maybe out of fear or guilt or shame. And what happened to me was I ended up marrying my wife and we had our first child. And all of a sudden, these defects of character start showing up in my life. Ones that I didn't think I had: anger, rage, all irritable, restless, and discontent. And it scared me. I scared myself. I scared my wife. I yelled at my son when he was a baby in the back seat. I remember turning around. He's crying, and I don't know how to deal with the noise, and I'm now working on a lot of that stuff and have been for some years of, what certain stuff triggers me. But I know that none of that can even be solved without a spiritual connection, and I'm relying on myself at this point in my life. I'm a young man, new husband, and I have this baby, and I don't even know how to be a man myself. And that was my second surrender, deep surrender at that point. And I hadn't been going to meetings even probably that past year or so, and I was really disconnected from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had that, my wife's looking at me at our last fight, and she's looking at me, with this horror look on her face, tears rolling down her eyes, saying, "What happened to my husband? I want my husband back." I had lost myself. I had turned into a monster, and I had a moment of clarity. God told me, you need to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. You need to start, you just need to do something. And so that was a huge, huge point in my life. And I really, really, out of remembrance, I never want to forget that, right? I don't regret don't regret the past. That was almost 10 years ago now. And I don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, because I've learned a huge lesson. And the lesson was untreated alcoholism. I wasn't doing anything, and I was right there with the mental state that precedes the first drink. I couldn't have cared whether I lived or died at that point, you know. And I have a beautiful son, handsome little boy, beautiful wife, you know, that doesn't deserve any of this crap. And I'm empty, you know. And I realized for the first time, things and stuff and people, that's not the solution to my illness. That's not the solution to my life. And the solution, real quick, is going to be alcohol, or maybe drugs, if I go down that route, you know. But I know that I can't do that. So I'd rather just have the wheels spin in this rat cage in my head. And so I reached this place, long story short, and I go to Bonnie Lake Stag out here, and I show up to the meeting, and I show up to the business meeting, and and I'm like brand new again, right? I have 8 years. I'm dry. I feel more inadequate than I did when I was brand new, because now I have a head full of AA and I'm going crazy. And so I show up to my now home group, and I go to the business meeting, and basically it was, I'm here to help. I'm here to do whatever I need to do. I feel like I'm brand new. And I already had known a lot of the guys just through the years, right? Through connections, through AA. And so there's a lot of elders, alcoholics, and some of these guys were elders that had known me when I first came in. And they surrounded me with love. You know, I didn't feel like, I was so afraid to admit that I couldn't handle my shit at 8 years sober. And I had to step out on faith and face that fear. And it was either that or live a miserable, dry life, or the alternatives. And I chose to step out on that faith, man, and show up to the meeting and say, here I am. I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. And I think that was probably the first time where I really surrendered and took a step 2 and 3, really, right? Really came to believe that there's something else. I had to, that it really wasn't me. I couldn't live the rest of my life on my own thoughts, my own control, my own power. Still can't every day. I can't trust my thoughts. I have to trust God's thoughts. And what are those thoughts? What are the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous? Let go, right? Practice these principles in all my fare, the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And that certainly wasn't the way that I was living at that point. And so we were putting on a men's retreat at that time, and I went to a men's retreat, and there was another gentleman who had come into AA. He had 3 years at that point, and he was really on fire. Like, he was sponsoring guys, and I'm like looking at, I'm like, man, I want what he has. Like, he's killing it. Like, he's happy, he's passionate about the message, and we get to talking, and he sends me a link of like some speaker tapes or whatever, and I end up listening to the emotional sobriety workshop with Mark and Dave, and I got in touch with Dave after that, and I called Dave after Saturday morning, one of our home group meetings, and got his number, and then I called him. I remember I'm just thinking about that. Like, it's been a while now. I called him after that meeting, and he picks up, and he's like, hey, you know, and I had been texting him a little bit, and so I'm like, I need help. And so he goes, okay, well, how's your prayer and meditation? First question he asks, right? That's a Mark question. That's a Dave question. How's your prayer and meditation? Well, I'm not doing it. I'm not working with a sponsor. I don't have a sponsor at this point. And I really relate to what you're saying, and I need help. And so he goes, okay, well, I can help you. Let's start going through the steps, you know. And he started to relate to what was the coolest thing was with Dave at that time. Now we have a different relationship, but I was pretty in a bad way. And so how he deals with me now is not how he dealt with me then. How he dealt with me then was I got no condemnation, no try harder, do better, like, what the hell are you thinking? It was truly, I know exactly how you feel. This is what happened to me, and this is what I did. It was straight to his personal experience. And, you know, if you want to get better, this is what I've done. And so we started to work the steps, and he started to go through the daily disciplines. And one of the first handful of assignments he gave me was call 6 alcoholics a day, do the prayer number 1, which is we pray that to have our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. We clean house in the morning with the family, show them that. And so prayer number 1 for a week. And stop, get a mental picture of what does that look like in all of your relationships. You're irritable, you're restless, you're discontent. What does being patient with your kids look like? What does being patient, tolerant of your wife look like? What does being kind look like? You know, and we just started talking about these things that were spiritual, these spiritual principles that was almost like a different language to me for the first time in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm seeing this in the book, and I'm going through the book, and we're going through the steps, and I'm like, what the heck? What? I didn't know. Like, I didn't really read the book like that. I didn't really understand practical application of the steps. I wasn't making spiritual progress. I wasn't even progressing, you know, and there was no emphasis on hey, you should probably not think, and you should probably practice some prayer and meditation and get quiet and practice letting go of your thoughts and ask God to show you what he wants you to do. But that's not just like a one day you do it and then you just go on, and then now I'm just going to meetings. It was like this whole new message of this is a way of life. And for the first time in AA, I understood to the best I could at that time, right? Because we only understand, or, you know, to what we can see or to our experience at that time. For the first time, I really understood in a different way that it's not just the meeting. I don't go to the the meeting is a place now where I get to share experience, strength, and hope. I get to talk with guys about what I'm going through currently in my life, in my relationships. So Dave and I crank through the steps, and I'm having spiritual experiences like crazy. Like, I'm doing this work, and we get to do a 4th and 5th, and I'm getting to this 4th step, and for the first time, I'm doing an inventory where, you know, we're going right out of the book. We're doing resentments first. We're asking God to show us, to help us show them the same, and we're going down, you know, am I being cheerful to them? Am I being helpful when I'm angry at them? Am I all these things? Am I holding this resentment, but making it an excuse, using it as an excuse to be irritated at other people? And so I'm looking, or even the person that I'm resentful at, right? And so I'm looking at these little ways where this resentment's like corroding my insides. I'm blaming, I'm justifying, I'm saying, oh, I didn't say anything, but my body language, that doesn't matter, you know? And so I'm really peeling back this thing with forgiveness, right? And being able to understand that my angers maybe at other people are impacting current relationships in my life, right? And so for the first time, I'm seeing, well, that's how I deal with anger, but my wife catches the bullet when I'm irritated at other people because I'm not willing to forgive that and deal with this in a healthy way, where I need to really give this to God, and I really need to forgive, and I really need to understand what it's like to see them through how God sees them, really. And that's where a lot of this work comes in the fourth and fifth, where it was a new way to understand that I'm not so perfect. Like, who am I? Look where I've been. Look the things that I did and have done and can still do, because I'm not perfect. I'm not saying the things that I used to do, but I'm still imperfect. I still have struggles. I still have things that I have to take to God. And that's why I need a step 10. If I didn't, I wouldn't have to do any of this stuff. So I got to be honest with myself. And I think for the first time in this fourth and fifth, I really did an honest inventory and made it about me. It wasn't about what all these other people had done to me, in the sense that that now I just dump it and I'm moving on. It's really about how those things that I've been holding on to impacted the way that I treat others. I can't play the victim. That's, for me, that's to die. And I go there and I can get caught in that cycle still. And I mean, the most recent inventory I've done, it was a couple months ago. I had to do another, just because there's things that come up, these one-offs here and there, where poor Cody comes up. And when poor Cody comes up, poor Cody can justify any bad behavior and harm anybody, because I'm bringing justice, because I'm right and I'm in control. And that's what can happen to me if I'm not vigilant on staying on watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, and having these conversations on a daily basis with men, with my group that's around me. I do a Steel on Steel. We do bi-weekly, and it's 5 of us. And it's these 12 questions. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Steel on Steel, but it takes the justification out of your behavior when you can come in there and be honest with, well, what step are you on? Well, you've been on step 2 for, the past year, like you got guys in there saying, well, maybe you need to look at that and just take action on it. And we're not perfect. We show up to these things really to remember, number 1, that we got this thing. Number 2, that we're not in charge of our life, and that there is a God who is. And number 3, there's tools that we can pick up and practice and stay accountable to on a daily basis that help us get out of ourselves and not get all wrapped up in what we can't control, right? And I'll just speak for me. And that's what it helps me do. Just this way of life in Alcoholics Anonymous. So working these steps now, for the past almost, it's been a while with Dave, 8 more years, right? 16 and a half years. But 8 of that now I've been with Dave for quite a while now. And it's just set this trajectory, this work and this experience, and just pointing me to the book and pointing me to God and saying, no, look, spiritual experience. You're suffering from an illness that only a spiritual experience can conquer. This isn't Cody conquering the illness. This isn't the meeting conquering the illness. This isn't Dave conquering the illness. This isn't my sponsor being my God. This is none of that crap. It's about God being God and me understanding that he's God and I'm Cody and we're all people. That rolls for him alone. And that relationship keeps going deeper and it keeps getting stronger. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it because I'm not perfect and I need grace so badly in my life. But what I realize now is that the amount of grace God's had for me, not just in my drinking to get sober, but in my sober life, my recovered life here in Alcoholics Anonymous, the grace that he gives me to see, no, that's not the way. I've loved you through all of this, right? Like, I've helped you through all of this, Cody. and this is the way you're, like, you don't got to do that. Come on. It's these things, these experiences through these steps in these relationships with these men and these men and women in Alcoholics Anonymous that are all moving in we're all moving in the same direction. We're all trudging the road, and it's just cool. And these phone calls, I just want to talk about these phone calls things because I'm working with a guy right now, and we fairly new together. It's about a month or so, maybe a couple months now. And we're on inventory, maybe not quite 2 months, but he's on his inventory. He's doing his inventory now. And we got phone calls going right away. And the coolest thing about step 12 and passing this stuff on in order to continue for a continued spiritual experience, right? Work and self-sacrifice for others. It's the Gaunt prospector perspective that Bill writes about, right? You got to give it away to keep it. You mine this diamond, you don't hoard it for yourself. You got to tell people about it. You got to go out there and say, dude, you can be free. This is what I did. I'm free in sobriety. I'm free now. And it's not because of me. It's because there's a God out here that you can do this work and have a spiritual experience. And you could be able to practice letting go of control in a way that's like amazing. This fear, this self-centered fear crap that we all come in here with that drives every decision that I make, that stuff, there's a remedy for that. Faith. That's it. Faith over fear. That's what we're doing. I'm starting this relationship, right, with people first, but then it's almost like Bill does a bait and switch with the 12 steps, right? It's like, okay, come in, get connected through the relationships, through our people who've had the experience with God. And now, oh, here you go. Here I am. Here's God, right? And it's this relationship thing that happens where God shows himself through relationship. And it's a beautiful thing. And what I'm learning too, I mean, this is a continued thing it's just crazy, is the 12 steps are all about relationships, if you think about it. All of it, right? My relationship with myself, God, and other people. Purely. And a reliance upon a creator, right? And that's the relationship. That's the solution. That's the switch from the solution that used to be the alcohol that eased all that comfort and ease from the first drink, and that was the solution to the fear or all of that. The problem is when I turn to my solution as an alcoholic, that solution that's so terrible for me takes me. I can't control it. That craving, that coupled with that mental aspect, I'm done. I'm toast, and that's my solution. But I get into Alcoholics Anonymous, and now here I am, fast forward, and that's not my first thought anymore. To go to something outside of, something to alter my mind for a solution. Today, it's something's wrong. I need to connect with somebody. I need to get honest. And just touching on how it works, the first paragraph, it's got to be one of my favorite paragraphs. And we read it all the time. But like these past few years alone, that first paragraph it means something so much different. I did not know what the hell I was reading when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous, rigorous honesty. It talks about honesty 3 different times. And now we're talking about in that very first paragraph. Like I feel like it doesn't get enough credit as it should, this honesty piece. And so that, just to tie it back into this daily discipline of calling people, that's the experiences that I'm having and seeing in other men. With this gentleman that I'm working with now, is we get to talk and he gets to say, he goes, Cody, dude, I wasn't talking to anybody, but now I'm talking to, 20, 30 guys, and I'm talking about my life. I'm opening up about where I'm at. I'm going crazy in my head, and I feel comfortable talking to these guys because they're sharing with me. They're telling me they're no different, dude. And we don't know how it works, but we just get honest and we have honest relationships, and then we practice these principles and practice these steps, and somehow, some way, organically, God shows up and does what he does. Like we share God with each other and we don't even realize it sometimes, and I think he comes in through those honest relationships, and I had to first get honest with myself that I wasn't God, right? I'm just thinking about the steps right now. Let's talk about honesty. There's a God and he's not me, that's honest. Okay, God, I really don't want to run the show. I'm going to believe that you can do it. I don't know how this is going. This is going to happen, but you can have it. You do it. I mean, I have to somehow look at myself honestly to be able to recognize that I can't control the world. Like that's an honest, deep experience to have, and yeah, I'm kind of a deep thinker, guys. That's probably my problem, right? It can be my blessing and my curse. But too much thinking. But those thoughts about God, and it's just so good. It's just so good. And then I come to this fourth and this fifth step, and it's more honesty. It's a brutally honest look at my life, my resentment inventory, my sex inventory, my sex ideal, who I'm harming, and all my fears and all that, these fears that just plague my life. And all of this is self-centered, and these self-centered fears that I get out of my resentment list and that come out of that. Why are you afraid? That fourth question. Why are you afraid? And then we look at that stuff. Why? What was I afraid of? I'm not really angry. I mean, I am. That's a byproduct of me being scared. What am I scared of? What did I not get? What am I not getting? What am I going to lose? What is this person doing to me that's stirring up some old need that's not getting met, that I'm afraid that if I don't get it, that I'm not going to be okay? I'm afraid to be disrespected. I'm afraid to be loved. I'm afraid to be unloved. I want you to love me, but I don't want you to, and then my ego, the ego is a one-trick pony, fear. And I'm in control of all of this, right? And I'm trapped in between all these fears, and that's how my life is apart from God. That's how my life is apart from this journey. And so honesty, and I go 6 and 7, 8, 9, I got to go sit with somebody and be honest with them about my side of the street. What did I do? And without strings attached, with detaching from the outcome and expecting any response from them, I need to show up, and then ask those questions about how it impacted them. It's all about them. What did I not know about what I did that hurt you? Because sometimes what I do to hurt you isn't even the thing that hurt them the most. I'm finding that out in marriage the hard way. I need to listen. I need to understand, I think that I'm hurting you one way, but it's really not really what's hurting you. There's this other need not being met, or something that I do that hurts you that I'm not listening to because I think what I think because it's all about me. And that's it's really eye-opening to continue to do that type of stuff, and if I didn't have a connection with God, man, I think I'd really feel like a big piece of shit for a lot of stuff that I've done. Excuse my language. Guys, I promise. I don't talk like this in front of my kids, okay? Stop judging me. No, I'm kidding. But, step 10, right? Just coming in through this honesty thing, this revelation in how it works that it says rigorous honesty. Step 10, continue to take it personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, right? So continue to take personal inventory. That's step 10, right? So I'm honestly looking at my life on a daily basis to the best of my ability. I have to do that, right? Otherwise, I'm just out here doing what I want to do. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. So it's pretty honest again to understand in that posture, in that step, that I'm not God. That's honest. Like I'm practicing this honesty, and a lot of these things we talk about on phone calls in step work, when we're meeting, doing the steps and in meetings, but it's almost like this remembrance of I'm not in control. God is, there's a better way. These steps show me the better way, right? What these steps say is the blueprint, right? That's the blueprint, the vehicle to get me to the solution, which is a spiritual experience, right? And this spiritual relationship and this connection, and then step 12, I'm going to do it all over again with somebody else. And I'm getting honest about my life with this guy and saying, hey, I'm just like you. I see myself in you. These are the things that I practice. I'm not perfect at it. I don't call 6 every day. Sometimes it's 3, but you know what? I'm trying. I'm practicing. I'm not perfect, but the key is practice. Just don't stop practicing. Don't make excuses. It's spiritual progress. You don't have to be perfect. Don't put this impossible yoke on yourself to be perfect. Just practice, and it's not a cop-out to not do the work, because I experienced it. Sometimes it's like I can yoke myself up from like, I got all these things I got to do. And it's like, yeah, and then I'll analysis paralysis and I won't do any of it. So it's an easier approach. It's just realizing that it's progress. And now that if I make one phone call, oh, that wasn't so bad. Now I'm making another one, and then another. 3 is better than 2, right? 2 is better than 3. 2 is better than 1, whatever. And it's that whole thing to build on that practice, especially coming into this thing. And so I'm talking about this stuff and with a new guy. And now I have to be honest about my life. Am I really working this program? Am I really doing stuff? Am I staying active? Got to admit to you, man, I didn't do that yesterday, but I'm going to tell you to do this, and we're both going to do it today because I need to do this discipline again or something, right? So it's just there's a lot of tools, a lot of different things to use. And one thing, the biggest, I don't even want to say the biggest, but one of the coolest things is I think at that 8-year mark, when I had that second surrender, I realized that I needed God as much as I need oxygen, as much as I need water, food, survival. And that's what drove me to practice the prayer and meditation on a daily basis. And I think that constant in my life today, to develop that relationship and not want to miss that time every day. And a cool little trick that I try to use with that is sometimes I get woken up by my kids. I can't do it first thing in the morning because they demand me. But I've learned this kind of trick on my mind to say, well, if I couldn't do it first thing, go take a bathroom break after an hour. Do it then. You can do it anytime. So there's no excuse. I used to pigeonhole myself into thinking if I missed it first thing in the morning, then I'm just going to do it tomorrow. Doesn't work like that. For me, tomorrow would happen and I wouldn't do it, and I fell into that trap. So today, anytime, and it's developed into this cool thing where it can be multiple times a day now. it's this practice. It's this way of life. When I get quiet time before I go, in the evening before I go into the house, and I know it's going to be a chaotic house, I can put my spiritual armor on. I can get a vision of, okay, I'm going to go in there. There's probably going to be some kids crying. My wife might be stressed out or something. And how do I show up in this thing and be helpful and not take things personal? Excuse me. I almost said that word again, and not take it personal, And so that's the practice. And I think it's just been quite the journey. And I'm super grateful today. I'm grateful for another just oxygen in my lungs, and just reflecting sometimes on where I was even before getting here, and at that dry surrender, and just that spiritual and mental death, but then that physical aspect when I was out there and the stuff that I got involved in where I should be dead. I really should. And God's grace. So I think that's all I got, guys. Appreciate it.